Welcome on in to NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Flow Racing here on the Motor Racing Network. My name is Chris Wilner. Kyle Rickey out there in Killingly, Connecticut. Or actually, are you at Stafford here today? I never can keep track where you are.
We're in Killingly today.
You are in Killingly.
We're in Killingly.
Concord, North Carolina. And it was a very big weekend for not one, but two of us. Two different reasons. One, officially married.
Reasons.
Oh, let me get it in there. There we go. Had my wedding this weekend back in Indianapolis. It was a dream come true. And Kyle was in where dreams come true, Walt Disney World, his favorite place in the world. So a very big weekend for the both of us. Kyle, tell me about your trip. I know Daytona was a marathon. You had to deal with a lot of rain, a lot of storms, travel nightmares, but you did get to go to the happiest place on earth. How was it?
I did, and that was the nicest, driest day of the whole weekend. We flew in very early on Thursday, and it's like, well, what are we going to do all day? We can go sit on the beach, and Jason Toy, who worked for Pit Road worked Pit Road for us over the weekend, said, let's go to Disney. My daughter works over there at Epcot, and we can meet up with her, and I can see my daughter. You can ride the rides that you haven't been on in a few years, and make a day of it, and we did, and it was a great time. It wasn't as crowded as I last remembered back pre-pandemic. I guess everyone was at the Magic Kingdom that day, but it was a good time. I got to ride some of the new attractions that have opened the last 2 years and enjoyed them both. It was fun. And then we went over to Daytona, and for the most part, sat in the rain for 3 days. Yep.
Well, at least you had some memories from Disney World to come back with. But that's awesome. Glad you had a great time. We've got a busy show. Doug Coby coming on here in just a little bit in segment number 2. A big win out at Langley, for a part-timer this year. Him and Tommy are just like lockstep with each other. Every time he gets in that 7NY, he finds victory lane, it seems like. So picked up another one, his third of the year. We'll talk to him about that and maybe a little bit of reconciliation between him and his teammate, Jimmy Blewett, after a couple weeks ago at Thompson. Yeah. So we'll see what he has to say about that. But of course, we'd like to start things off celebrating our big winners from the weekend here as we wrap up the month of August. I cannot believe it. As this show airs, I believe will be officially in September. So pretty incredible that the season is flying by. But Kyle, we're going to kickstart our top 7 with our number 1 winner. And I just mentioned him. His name is Doug Coby, winning the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour out at Langley. Watched the race, and it seemed like that guy could have probably just been like Jean Girard and Talladega Nights, sipping his macchiato with one hand on the wheel. It was that easy.
Saturday night cruising for Doug down at the Langley Speedway, a track where he nearly got a win 5 years ago, I guess it was now, 2017. Led a bunch of laps, got turned late in the going while leading within the final few laps of the event. Then comes 5 years later to a track that the Tour hadn't been to since 2018. And fast in practice, fast in qualifying, led every lap. Was it that easy? We'll talk to him here in a bit and see if it was.
We'll see. I have a feeling race car drivers say it's never easy, but I don't know. You certainly made it look like the contrary. Kyle, our Coast to Coast top 7, number 2, who do you have?
We're going to go north of the border, the NASCAR Pinty Series in action, the General Tire 125 at Circuit iCar. Kevin Lacroix picking up yet another win, his third of the season. Pretty tame race for road racing with shocking. The NASCAR Pinty Series. Just 2 caution flags for stalled cars on the racetrack, but Kevin Lacroix, a championship contender, point leader, all for most of the season in the NASCAR Pinty Series. They're getting down to it. Just a couple of events to go, but Kevin able to pad that lead a little bit more over the weekend at Circuit iCar.
Coast to Coast top 7, number 3. I'm going to go with Sammy Smith as the ARCA Menard Series continues to roll through a busy kind of back half of the summer stretch coming off of Watkins Glen. He wins the ARCA Menard Series event, the Spreacher 150 at Milwaukee, the Big Milwaukee Mile, one of the most iconic short tracks in North America. Glad to see the ARCA Menard Series back at that facility. Super cool. And held off another youngster, Taylor Gray, there at the very end, and for his third ARCA Menard Series win of the year. And it was a nice win for Sammy because he about 48 hours or so before in the Xfinity Series race, one of his venturing on early in his career, crashed out at Daytona. I know he's pretty sour about it, but hey, you get a redemption win with the ARCA Menard Series at Milwaukee. What a great race for him. Continues to roll in that number 18 car. I'll be really curious to see what kind of momentum he can carry the rest of the season, because I think we talked a little bit when we had him on the show that technically, he could win out and make some noise, although he didn't run the first 4 races of the year. So we'll see what happens.
He could. Making some noise at one of the oldest, I think the oldest maybe, race facility in the country at the Milwaukee Mile over the weekend. So congratulations to Sammy. Felt so bad for him. I think it was like lap 3 on Friday night or Saturday morning whenever we started the Xfinity race. It was about midnight when he spun off of turn 4. He got the inside wall. So the highs and lows of motorsports, and Sammy experienced them both over the weekend. Moving on to our number 4 in our Coast to Coast top 7, Ryan Millington. The playoffs roll on at the Hickory Motor Speedway over the weekend, and he won feature number 1 for the late models, part of a twin bill there. Held off the ladies, Isabel Robusto and Annabeth Barnes-Crum, who we had on the show earlier this season. Ryan not running for the championship, running a part-time schedule this season at Hickory, but was able to claim the win in race number 1 at the Hickory Motor Speedway on Saturday night.
So for Coast to Coast top 7, number 5, I'm just going to go ahead with the winner of race number 2, and that is Landon Huffman, who we had a couple weeks ago here on the show, running for the track championship this year. Picked up his 3rd win of the year, also holding off the ladies. So podium finishes in race 1 and 2 for Isabella Robusto and Annabeth Barnes-Crum. 125 points now is his points lead going into the big championship night on September the 17th out at Hickory. So I do know Pockets and Brews, which is the local drinking establishment near the Hickory Motor Speedway, was crowded. The social media, the pictures from there, I can only imagine what it will be like if Landon secures that championship in a couple weeks' time. So certainly well-deserving, and he's got a big week as well, wrapping up actually after the show airs Thursday. On Wednesday, the Big Cars Tour late model stock race. I know he was out taking part in the limited event with High Rock Vodka as the sponsor. Dale Earnhardt Jr., a big partner involved with that. So really big week for Landon Huffman. All right, Coast to Coast top 7, number 6, Kyle, who is on your list?
We're going to go, up to northern New England we go. The prestigious Oxford 250 was run over the weekend, and Cole Butcher picked up the race win. He becomes the first winner of the event from Nova Scotia and the first Canadian to win the race in a long time. I didn't think it was that long, but 1995, going back to Dave Whitlock. Butcher, a little bit of controversy late in the race, got into Johnny Clark, a longtime competitor up here in the Northeast in full-bodied racing. Led a bunch of laps early, and there was contact made between those two. So interesting finish in front of a great crowd. Eddie McDonald, another longtime name up here, finished in the 2nd spot. 39 cars took the green. 60 tried to make the race. So another great turnout. The place was packed both on Saturday night and on Sunday for the 250. So congratulations to the promoters up at Oxford Plains. A great race, and Cole Butcher for picking up the race win.
Absolutely. And the gentleman who won the night before the 250 for the American Canadian Tour is Derek Lukács, who won the big series event out there. That was, we talked about last week. Bubba Pollard was entered in that race. Carson Hocevar was entered in that race. With some big names taking part, kind of in a nice build-up for Oxford Plains to have their big night before event. But Derek picked up the win. They also had a major power outage. The track lights went out. I think, half the town lost power at some point during the event, so definitely threw a wrench in things. It's not the first time I've heard of a track losing track lights, so certainly interesting that happened. But hey, Derek picked up the win, and it was an emotional win. It's the night before the 250, but for the ACC, that's a marquee event with all eyes on Oxford Plains that weekend. So big congratulations to Derek.
Yeah, knocked the streaming service off the air. So I had people that, paid to watch the event wondering what was going on at the racetrack. And the folks at home don't know that all the track lights are out and a lot of the electronics at the racetrack are out because there was a power hit in town. But yeah, congratulations, Derek Lukács. Great run. He's come a long way in a relatively short amount of time. Racked up a bunch of wins a few years ago at the Seekonk Speedway and has expanded his horizons throughout the New England region. All
right, so those are our Coast to Coast top 7 winners of the week. Of course, we have our weekly shout-outs of the week, and I'm going to go with Deke McCaskill, who, you know what? we talk about these young superstars in grassroots racing, but he got one for the old guys. One of the elder statesmen for the Cars late model stock tour finally got a win after nearly 2 years of waiting out at Motor Mile this past weekend before their big trip up to North Wilkesboro. He was a 2016 series champion, but even more special was in 2018, his wife Sandy suffered some major strokes. He took time away from racing or really slowed down his racing career to take care of her, get her back up to speed. So this win, certainly emotional for him. She was there, dedicated the win to him. So really cool to see Deke get back to victory lane. It was a popular win amongst all of our youngsters and our championship contenders like the Quapples. You know, it was really cool to see Deke kind of take one for the elder statesman. So Kyle, who's your shout out of the week?
I love a good feel-good story, and
Yes.
This is one of probably my favorite for the entire year, maybe for the entire time we have done this show in the last decade. Peyton Lanphier. We've talked about her a couple of times this year. Diagnosed with stage 4 cancer 4 months ago. Made her first start of the season in the ACT race on Saturday night at Oxford Plains. Since her diagnosis, she competed in the event with her sister, Riley, for the first time. She has a PET scan this week, hoping the results show that she is cancer-free or at least close to being cancer-free. So we hope to see Peyton back behind the wheel of a stock car more and more here as the summer winds out down. She said the 5 days leading up to the race, she was so sick she couldn't move. She couldn't get out of bed. She found that energy, though, on Saturday to get to the racetrack, get suited up for the first time in 2022, and got behind the wheel, took the green flag, and made some laps. So good for Peyton. We want to wish her the best and her, continued progress in what has been a very tough summer for her.
100%. Really special for her to have Carson Hocevar there, her boyfriend, who's been by her side throughout this whole journey, and he actually ran one of her family cars as well. We mentioned in the night before the 250, so the two of them together, definitely special for sure. So I'm sure there were some tears that happened as well for her to get back in the race car. So super, super cool. Definitely probably the best shout out I think we've had all season. I think that was much deserved for Peyton. All right, well, Doug Coby's been waiting for us because we've just been jabbering away. So let's go ahead and dial him up, and we'll be right back here on NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Flow Racing with the winner of the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour out at Langley this past weekend, Mr. Doug Coby. Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Flow Racing. Joining us now via Zoom, it is the most recent winner for the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Series at Langley. That is Doug Coby, driving the infamous 7NY for Tommy Baldwin. Doug, first of all, congratulations. We've talked about it earlier this year. A little bit different, kind of not running for the points and running a part-time schedule, but things clicked again when you hopped aboard Tommy Baldwin's ride and got the big win at Langley. How would you assess your night and just kind of walk us through it?
Oh, I mean, the car was just a rocket from the time we unloaded. And it seems like that's kind of Tommy's MO this year is it's either really fast on new tires or, on old tires, you'll see it mid pack. And then all of a sudden when he starts, really working at the thing, it's back towards the top again, qualifying good now. We had a couple of not so great qualifying runs, but now he's got 2 poles in a row with Jimmy and me, Thompson and Langley. So, I mean, the thing is just really firing on all cylinders right now. And I kind of knew from the way it was in practice that we were going to have a really good shot at being fast all day. And I mean, the biggest thing for me was qualifying up front because I knew it was going to be a tough track to pass on. Seemed like the track has totally changed since 2018, since we were last there. So starting on the pole certainly made it a lot easier. I could set my own pace, save my tires, let the guys behind me kind of battle it out. And even when those Silk and Beers got up towards the end towards the front at the end there, I kind of knew they had to use their stuff up. So it was a great day for us and another win for Tommy's team, 5 on the season, which is pretty special with 3 different drivers,
I mean, you look at the numbers. You started on the pole. You led all 150 laps en route to the win. Some would call it a Saturday night cruise, but they say these wins never come easy. So were there any hiccups during the day or during the event?
No.
Okay.
I mean, listen, it was just a great day. We stuck to the plan, and that's been something Tommy and I have learned over the course of our 7 races together. When we stick to the plan, it seems like things go pretty well. And when we start trying to make the plan better than it was maybe intended to be, that's when maybe we, had a couple of off races. Saturday was one of those races, where it seemed like everybody else was really struggling with the grip that the track was giving all of us, and we were just struggling less. And it was actually really similar to Myrtle Beach and Lee, managing the tires on an abrasive surface. And I've certainly had some success at both of those tracks with wins there. So it kind of played into my wheelhouse. It played into my wheelhouse that Matt Hirschman wasn't there. I think that would have been a race that he would have been able to really put some pressure on us, and would have been right up front the whole day, because that type of track plays into his style of racing. And certainly the lack of grip in the track would have lent to him being fast there too. So, no Ryan Preece, no Matt Hirschman, not to say that they would have beaten the 7, or it just would have changed the day,
For a driver, though, what kind of challenges do you face? Or I guess maybe there aren't, because of how seamless the transition seems to be when you share a car with 2 other drivers. Everyone has a different driving style, but it seems like there's really no gap. It's just that car performs almost identical between the 3 of you guys. So what is it about Tommy? What is it about that team, that car, that you're able to, after a couple races, get back in and it's like you never left?
It's just a couple years in the making of him working on his setups and working on this one particular chassis that he's put a lot of time into to run the Tour races, the Tour style races with the Tour, the way the Tour sets the day up from practice to qualifying, with the adjustments we're allowed to make, in advance of qualifying in the feature. It's very limited. It's not like we have heat races and then we all go back and, make massive adjustments or changes to our cars for the feature. The cars are impounded after qualifying, and you can't jack the thing up. So, if you want to get wedge in the thing, you're lifting up on the bumper to get wedge in the left rear. And Tommy has really learned how these races play out for his old setups and really perfected it. And this is probably the first car where, my input matters during the day. My ability to break down what I feel and explain to him what we need. We may tweak a little bit on how far we go for an adjustment for qualifying for the 2 laps or for the feature. But for the most part, I think he's doing the same thing with all 3 of us. And, he's got slightly different, we all weigh different amounts, and, he's got slightly different setups that I'm sure he has to move some weight around for, me and Jimmy and Michael. Certainly all 3 of us are kind of pretty different. But as far as handling goes, I've driven a lot of good cars, and I think it helps that I know what a good car feels like, what a winning car feels like. And for me, I just go out there and I tell them it's either got it or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then we start throwing some things at it. And I knew that it had it. It just had great forward drive, and I could watch some of the other cars and hear what some of the other drivers were complaining about. And I just didn't feel that same thing. My car was turning and driving, and that's all you can ask for on a little round circle like that.
Chris mentioned a moment ago that this has been a part-time season for you, running just 8 of the 12 events. Is there a different feeling showing up at the racetrack, not having to worry about points for the first time in 12 years?
Not really. I mean, I always try to drive the same way, regardless of whether I'm in points or not. I think the feeling that I have right now is maybe what could have been if I raced the 4 races that I missed. New Smyrna, Richmond, Wall, and Jennerstown are pretty good tracks for me. So I think I probably had a decent shot, whether it be in my own equipment or Tommy's equipment, to have run very well at those 4 tracks. And, if you take like an average finish of like 6th or 7th, it still would put me ahead in driver's points by like 30 something points with 4 races to go. So, it's just one of those things. It's been an interesting season on the Tour with, I think some people are battling some differences in the tires, just in terms of, maybe how they were constructed or how old they are, and how that translates to setups and features and making adjustments. And the tried and true, isn't always working for everybody. So, I approached this season like any other season. What can I get done? And I knew in the beginning of this year that my number 10 team wasn't going to be a full-time tour team, and having the opportunity now to fill in 7 races with Tommy, finish in the top 10 in all of them and finish, get 3 wins out of those 7 races. It's exciting. It's fun. I think I talked to a bunch of people in the off season, and I said, you never know what's going to come about as the season rolls on. And, last year, 2021, I didn't know I was going to race and win SRX. I didn't know I was going to get a truck series ride. And that's why when I came into this season as a part-time competitor, it really didn't stress me out or bug me at all, because something like this comes along, and that's just the story of 2022.
Absolutely. Now, kind of ironically with this win this last weekend, if you remember 2 weeks ago, that was the car you made contact with. I know it's been a couple weeks though, and Jimmy Blewett was behind the wheel at Thompson when you guys got together, but now you picked up the win. So is this a little consolation for Tommy? Like, hey, sorry about 2 weeks ago, got you a win this weekend. And 2, where are you and Jimmy at? Have you guys talked? I know he was pretty heated a couple weeks ago, but obviously time may heal. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so it's going to take some time with Jimmy. We are good friends. And so there's something to be said there, and he knows that. So we have texted a few times, and we have plans to chat. There was some vacation involved and some other racing he was doing. So it was kind of like, you go back and you get busy again, and you can't dwell on, 2 weeks ago. I think the thing about the contact at Thompson that put the 7 in the wall was, for me, just kind of how Tommy handled the situation. Tommy and I don't have a tremendous amount of history together. We are not buddies from the racetrack. We've chatted in passing, make jokes, about certain stuff over the years, but he's not somebody that he didn't call me because, we go back decades or something like that. And he wanted me in the car. It's just a kind of a new friendship. And I was super impressed with how he handled the situation right away. And I think for any of the race fans or the keyboard wizards on social media who have comments to make about what happened, really all that matters is what the car owner wanted to do after what happened. And, that very night he told me, we're getting ready to go to Langley. And so that was impressive to me in many ways. Certainly should be expected. I mean, with his experience and the Cup Series and managing hundreds of people and different personalities and different situations. So maybe somebody else wouldn't have handled things the way that Tommy did. And I'm grateful for that. I think it shows a lot of him as a person and a competitor. And he just wants to go out there and win and get the job done for the 7 this year and wrap up an owner's championship. So, when there's 2 drivers involved, and in this case, there was 2 car owners involved, one of which who was the driver. And I do want to remind everybody, I was driving a brand new car that night. So it's certainly not like I was out there trying to hack my way around and wreck my car too. So this was an unfortunate circumstance that happened between our 2 cars. And it's being dealt with between the people who are involved in the situation. And those are the only opinions and conversations that matter. So it's kind of like lots of things in racing. It seems like these days you're either on one tribe or you're in the other tribe. And if you're not in this tribe, whether it's politics or racing or whatever, we can't all meet in the middle, and everybody has very strong opinions about things. And I would just caution people against that, because if it's not your investment and it's not your time and it's not your equipment, it's not really your business.
Until that moment, well said. Well said.
Yes.
Until that moment on the front stretch, was it nice to be back at Thompson with the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, first time in a couple of seasons?
It's awesome at Thompson. Modifieds at Thompson. I know some people think it's crazy with the slide jobs and some of the not so great slide jobs. A lot of things people don't realize about Thompson is that track changes quite a bit for us over the course of a race, and moves you can do early in the race you can't do late, and lines where you have to find grip and all sorts of weird spots sometimes. So that's what I love about that track, is you never know what you're going to get that night, and it's super fast and racy. And it's really, to me, the staple of the tour. To think we used to go there, did we go there 5 times?
5 times.
A bunch of seasons. I mean, and it was never like going to Thompson ever got old. And that's the coolest thing about tracks like Thompson, is that you could go there 2 times, 5 times, or 8 times, and it's still going to be fun all 8 of those times. So it's an awesome facility. Hope we go back there at, obviously the World Series, but hopefully we have some things in line for 2023 for the tour there. Just a great track for the modifieds. And of course I grew up racing, back at Little T. So there's a lot of history there with me and my family and the Honig family in that facility.
So with 4 tour races left to go, first off, how many of those are you going to run? And 2, now that this championship battle between Ron and McKennedy are kind of coming down to the wire, how much does that weigh on your mind when you're out there knowing these 2 guys are within mere couple points from each other going down to the wire?
So to answer your first question, I'll be in all 4 of the remaining tour races. You'll see me in the 7 and the 10 to fill out the season. Not quite sure exactly what the breakdown is going to be. I mean, I know what it's going to be likely, but it kind of all depends, I think, how the next couple races go, how that shakes out. As far as the points battle goes, I mean, certainly I'm no stranger to end of the season points, tight points battles and points championships. It's really up to those guys to protect their cars in the next 4 weeks. It's always been up to me to protect my car. And that's why I have an awful lot of 7th place finishes at the World Series to close the season on the tour, because when you're running up front in points and you just have to do what you have to do to seal the deal, you make sure you get it done. So I'm certainly not interested in getting in the middle of their points battle. I think they're pretty much getting in the middle of their own points battle. Yeah. And I think it's exciting. I mean, it's a lot of times with me and Justin, let's say, we were rivals, in terms of the point battles and winning races and whatnot, but we never really kind of got into it on the track in the middle of a points season. Ryan and I may have a few once or twice, but Justin and I never have. And so, yeah, that's pressure for John and Ron to figure out, how are they going to get that edge going into the last race of the season at Martinsville. And I certainly think you want to be the point leader after the World Series at Thompson and not the guy who's got to, try to make up ground at Martinsville, because they both had great seasons. Seems like they're both running in the top 3 or 4 every week for the most part, except for when they kind of took care of that themselves at Thompson. Sure. So it's likely that they'll be within a couple spots of each other the rest of the year. And, whoever it is, whether it's Ron or John or Eric or Justin, it's crazy that Justin is still in contention here, but 26 points for the 51 team is not a whole lot to make up, especially when the top 2 guys might have a chip on their shoulder against each other. And that can change things awfully quick, especially when you're going to tracks like, Riverhead and Thompson. Those are some wild card tracks. They always will be. And, we'll see whoever comes out on top.
Final question for you. You've already answered a little bit of it about the rest of the season. 4 races left on the tour, and there's a whole host of other open type races and tri-track races. I mean, modified racing aplenty up here in the Northeast. Any other modified events on your calendar outside of the tour?
Nothing right now. I'm not planning on going to the tri-track race at Stafford as of right now. That could change, but I'm not planning on it. And then really, you're just talking about the Islip 300, Turkey Derby, and the open mod race at Thompson. So I don't have any plans to compete in those right now. But just like my season started off, didn't have plans on competing in a lot of these races, and you might just see me there.
So for me, finally, we talk every year about, the growth of modifieds and kind of what we've seen really over the last 2 years, especially with the streaming with Flow now and the growth of the fan base. Now that we're kind of wrapping up 2022, is there anything maybe schedule-wise or things like that maybe you'd like to see happen for 2023? Because it's never too early to talk about next year already.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the tour, I always have ideas for the tour schedule, and I'm not the guy.
Let's go. What do you got?
I'm not the guy that makes the tour schedule, so what I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, there are a ton of tracks that I think we could go to. I think the first priority should be getting back to Stafford with a modified tour race, and whatever it takes to do that. We need to be at Stafford and Thompson. Those are the tracks that showcase the tour the best on television to new fans. And those are the tracks that I think the other short tracks around the Northeast and the East Coast, they look at as examples for who's hosting tour races. So to me, it starts there. getting Stafford and Thompson nailed down. And hopefully Josh has some more races planned for JDV Productions. And I think that's a big important part of our future at short tracks. I really enjoyed a lot of these tracks that we've been going to. So the fact that we're at, some tracks like Seekonk, but then not at Seekonk. I mean, I love Seekonk, so I'd love to be back there, but I'm okay with it being every couple years cycling in and out of these short tracks, because I don't know how sustainable these races are at some of these smaller facilities that, it's a big purse, not necessarily the biggest of crowds. I think it's awesome to cycle them through and then every 3 or 4 years kind of bring them back, because it reinvigorates the fans and gets more people out there. So no specific tracks that you'd like. I mean, Dominion, I'd love to see the tour at Dominion. There's a couple others, but it's neither here nor there. It doesn't really matter.
Sure, absolutely. But it's always, I'm always curious kind of where drivers like to think, things would fit. And certainly Dominion, that's one I didn't even think about. But you're right. I'd like to see them there too. We'll wrap it up too. A little quick preview of Oswego, another track up in New York. What do we think about it? What's your overall, or what's your early impression of heading up there this weekend?
Oswego is an awesome facility. I mean, it's super fast. You are just buried into the throttle there, and there are, tons of bumps that kind of throw you around. And, the first year that we went there that I won that race, I think it was 2016, our first year back with the modified tour. I think they had sprayed the outside at some point in the summer. I don't know if it was right before our race, but they sprayed some syrup down on the outside, and it made for some awesome racing. It seems like since then, the grip level has gone away. It's back to kind of being an old beat up kind of racing surface that, you have to be on the ball to get everything you want done there, because you have guys like Matt Hirschman who are he's a pro there. I mean, you're battling not only the track, but you're also battling Matt, who's going to be super consistent. But certainly Ron Silk, Justin Bonsignor, I don't know if Ryan Preece is going. All of those guys have won races there. And I think when you look at who's won races at Oswego in the last, 6 years or so, there's a lot of great drivers and teams who have done that. So we're certainly all capable. It's a neat facility. It's a fun facility for the fans to watch out with the covered grandstand and being right on the lake up there. It's definitely a different environment for all of us. So I'd say bring it on. I hope we go there every year as well. It's definitely become one of my favorite tracks, and it helps that I think I've run in the top 5 there mostly every time we've gone. But it's a really fast facility and a good show for the mods.
Well, best of luck up there. Can't wait to watch it all, the coverage on Flow Saturday night. And congratulations on your big win at Langley. Again, we talk about 2017 and the what coulda, shoulda, but I think finally we can stop talking about that. You finally got one back at Langley on the tour, so that's got to feel good.
Yeah, it feels awesome. And thank you guys for having me on. And of course, everything you do to promote the modified tour and the open modifieds and anything that's a ground pounder with big horsepower and open wheels. I mean, we're certainly appreciative of everything Flow's doing to get our brand out there and bringing in new fans.
Awesome. Well, we love it. Best of luck this weekend. That's Doug Coby getting ready to tackle the rest of the tour schedule after a big win at Langley. For us, on the flip side of the break on NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Flow Racing, we've got the Go With The Flow calendar chock full of races coming up this weekend. We'll let you know what's going on after this. Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Flow Racing. As always, time to talk about our interview we just heard from. How about Doug? Super confident, super, really actually pretty candid about Jimmy and kind of their conversations and everything that happened a couple weeks ago. But really excited to see what he could do the last 4 races, Kyle. And I know he doesn't know exactly which car he'll be in for which race, but you look at the rest of the schedule. He mentioned 2 of them with Thompson, and even, heck, not only Riverhead, but I'm going to throw Martinsville in there. It's just absolute wild card races. So I'm excited to see if Doug can kind of shake things up, and I'm sure this won't be the last victory this season.
And he won't be able to contend for the title, but I think, based on his performance in the 8 races that he has run, he can finish top 5 in points, even with missing 4 races. He is that... there's some guys in points that, they race for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th place, but he can outpoint them enough where I think he can get up there and finish top 5. Probably, obviously, not going to catch Ronnie Silk and John McKennedy and even Justin Bonsignor, but he can certainly be a player. I also think that, much like Landon Huffman a couple of weeks ago, that when his career is done, he could be a great promoter.
Yes,
100%. He's a great spokesman for the sport. Obviously, a multi-time champion in the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. Has represented that series well now for more than a decade and a half. Continues to represent it even as a part-time competitor, and will no doubt, or could be no doubt, a great promoter one day.
Yeah, we've had a couple back-to-back really good, quality discussions in terms of the future of the sport and what you would do differently. And it's definitely got my wheels turning of like what would the next 3-4 years look like for short track racing in general. So really cool stuff, really good conversations. Appreciate Doug for coming on in. We're going to wrap up the show like we always do with our Go With The Flow calendar presented by Flow Racing. And of course, we'll keep talking about the Ground Pounders. The mod's back at it with the Bud Mod Classic at Oswego. We heard Doug kind of preview what he's going to expect. Super fun, super technical, but lightning fast racetrack out at Oswego Speedway up there in New York. Saturday night at 7:30. You can catch the coverage on Flow Racing. And Kyle, you mentioned the points battle. 3 points. That is tight, and those two have gotten together already a couple weeks ago. They're not going to be sending each other a Christmas card this year, so you think that I'm sure it could fluctuate again this weekend.
Well, and the last thing these two want to do, talking about Ronnie Silk, John McKennedy, Silk, a former Modified Tour champion, John McKennedy looking for his first NASCAR championship, has found success in the ISMA Super Modifieds up here in the Northeast. The last thing they want to do over the last 4 races is worry about each other and do exactly what happened at Thompson, and that's wreck each other and let Justin Bonsignor or some of the other drivers in the top 5 back into this title fight. They have a fairly healthy lead right now, but you don't want to get together too much, or you could allow a third or fourth contender in, and that would make Martinsville very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure their crews are telling them that as well. Keep an eye and keep in mind the big picture, and that is the championship. ARCA Menard Series, Kyle, back at it as well. Man, just rolling through their season here as we hit the month of September. The Rust-Oleum Automotive finishes 100. At DuQuoin, we head back to the dirt after a fantastic Springfield event a couple weeks ago. Sunday, September the 4th on Flow Racing, you can see the ARCA Menard Series contenders back on the dirt there at DuQuoin. Be curious to see if Jesse Love can continue his strong showing on the dirt. I'm not sure. I don't think Buddy Kofoid, who was there to challenge for the win before that accident going down the front straightaway, is entered, but the championship there awfully tight as well.
Yeah, Nick Sanchez, 13 points. So probably one of the larger point leads we have seen here in the last couple of months in the ARCA Menard Series. The leading over Daniel Dye, Rajah Caruth falling back here in the last couple of weeks since a hiccup at Watkins Glen a couple of weeks back. 17 points now, back in the third spot, coming out of Milwaukee and heading into their second and final dirt race of the season this weekend.
That's right. And so they're on Sunday, but the ARCA West is in action on Saturday on Flow Racing. Their second visit to Portland, and I bet you everyone on the West Series is going, please don't rain, because my goodness, that was a wet and wild event back in June, the one that Jake Drew, your current points leader, won. But Kyle, I haven't looked at the weather, but I would think if it's dry, you could really attack that racetrack, because that is such a fun road course, and I think it probably will come down to Jake Drew again trying to defend his win.
But is it ever dry in Portland?
No.
Exactly. So the chances are, even if the forecast calls for 10% chance of rain, it's probably going to rain during the event. It was a wild one. We were there back in June. Jake Drew picked up the race win. In fact, he hadn't lost a race until 2 weeks ago when Tanner Reif was able to claim the win in the West Series latest event. Those two drivers running for the championship. In fact, Jake has a 44-point lead over Tanner. 4 races to go heading to Portland this weekend.
Speaking of, we're going to go now to the local short tracks, and we mentioned Hickory Motor Speedway and their championship battle, but kind of smack dab in between the penultimate and ultimate race of the season is the Bobby Isaac Memorial out there at Hickory coming up on Saturday. Flow Racing, Ryan Millington, the defending winner. It's a pretty special event. I know we had Dale Earnhardt Jr. out being a grand marshal at one of the other big kind of memorial events this year, but this one, because of where it falls, you almost have to wonder, are these championship contenders going to kind of take it easy and not want to tear up the race cars as we stare down the barrel of championship night on the 17th?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Usually a really great field comes out. Ryan Millington is the reigning winner of the race from 2021. Looking forward to seeing what he can do. You have the ladies that we've been talking about, Isabella Robusto, who's run well out there this year, Annabeth Crum-Barnes, who we've had on the show. She's picked up a couple of podiums the last couple of weeks and is currently second in points. Landon Huffman, the point leader. So there's a lot of contenders. I'm sure we'll see some outsiders filter in as well after this weekend's events at North Wilkesboro. So kind of a big week of racing, many speed weeks there in North Carolina with North Wilkesboro midweek. And then one of the bigger races of the year at the Hickory Motor Speedway with the Bobby Isaac on Saturday night.
Absolutely. And again, you mentioned Wilkesboro. Due to that event running when we record this show, of course, we'll talk all about it and probably get some insight next week on Coast to Coast. A couple other series kind of getting away from New England that are running this weekend. Show Me the Money series back at Montgomery. Pretty cool event down there as well, as there are, I think, only 3 races to go in that series. And then the Smart Mods, we haven't talked much about them. They kind of took that huge long hiatus with Bowman Gray and everything going on. Carteret County Speedway coming up on Saturday as well on Flow Racing. Should be fun as well. I believe Bobby Labonte back in action as well. So really fun series, speaking of the modifieds. And then Kyle, Flow Racing, again, the place to be beginning Friday. You've got the late model 50 out at Stafford. What are we going to expect from that one?
Yeah, Paradiso Insurance from locally in Stafford Springs sponsoring the event. Longest event of the year for the late models, a tight point battle. One of the winningest drivers, in fact, the winningest driver in the series, Tom Byrne, currently second in points, looking for another championship, trying to close in on the winningest driver of the year, Adam Gray. So going to be a good race. All the other divisions will be in action as well with the SK Modifieds and the SK Lights, Street Stocks, limited late models. Going to be a big night there. But we're not the only ones with a big event this weekend. Hard to believe. Championship night at South Boston Speedway coming up this weekend.
I can't believe it either. Like, where did the year go? But that is going to be the place to be for sure. All the heavy hitters in action on championship night. It is going to be one heck of a show on Saturday. Also running this weekend, don't forget Granby's got weekly racing as well. Berlin, Jeff Striegel's track, they're in action as well, continuing on. They're kind of late summer into the fall push. Meridian, Evergreen, Alaska, much more. It's going to be the place to be for sure. And of course, dirt racing as well is going on. I know the I think it's the Ted Horn 100 out at DuQuoin as well, the big mile for the USAC Silver Crowns. So if you like champ cars and you like open wheel, that's the place they're kind of doing a dual action event, competing with the Arkham Menard series as well. So, man, a lot going on, Kyle. I'm actually departing for my honeymoon this weekend, so unfortunately I will be off the grid. I will not be able to watch a single thing, which is going to drive me nuts because I'm probably going to.
You're going on a cruise, right?
I am, and I'm going to have to probably.
Just tell me. Huh? Just tell me when to meet you at the port, and I'll be there.
Okay. I'll drop a pin, tell you this is where I'll be. Okay. But unfortunately, with no cell service, I was like, man, I may have to not tell Maggie and go get it just so I can have flow on my phone. And we'll be at the dinner table and I can watch the NASCAR Wheeling Modified Tour and all the other good stuff. I don't know. I'll probably get in trouble. You don't want to start off marriage with an unhappy wife, so I may not, and just take one for the team, and you'll have to tell me all about it next week.
Well, you said you tried to watch Daytona from the altar the other night, so.
I did, yeah. That wasn't a good idea. Dylan Welch of the Motor Racing Network was my best man. He was behind me and said, don't do that.
Sitting there egging you on, I'm sure.
Yeah, he did originally, and then he saw Maggie's face, and he said, put it away. Anyways, Kyle, it's always good to talk to you, my friend. Enjoy your weekend. I probably actually won't see you next week because I will be in the middle of the ocean somewhere, so I'll see you in 2 weeks, but of course, NASCAR Coast to Coast will have an episode next week as always. Kyle will actually have to do some work and lead the show this week.
Wow. Appreciate it. It'll be fun. Enjoy the cruise.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. And appreciate to all of you fans tuning in to NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Flow Racing this weekend. Enjoy all the racing that's coming up, especially if you're taking part at Championship Night at South Boston. We'll relive it all next week's show. Have a great weekend, everyone.